I want to invite you on October 21st. I believe that's the right date. October 21st, we're going to start a brand new message series called Ancient Practices for Modern Problems. Ancient Practices for Modern Problems. I want you to invite your friends and your family, especially those who are struggling emotionally, those who are struggling with balance, those who are struggling with purpose, not really understanding, who people don't have peace, trying to figure some things out. We really believe God has answers in His Word, amen? So we're going to go through and we're going to have a good time talking about the things that God wants us to do, that we can have answers from the ancient practices that will solve some of our modern problems. But today, I got a message for you from Mark chapter number 12. And I want to read this passage of scripture, get straight to it. The text says this, and he, Jesus, if you're taking notes, you want to see who this is, and he, Jesus, sat down opposite the treasury and watched people putting money into the offering box. Stalk people much, Jesus? Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. And he called his disciples to him and said to them, truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all of those who are contributing to the offering box. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she, out of her poverty, has put in everything she had, all she had to live on. Jesus sat opposite the treasury, watched the people put in the money in the money offering box. Many rich people put in large sums, and a poor widow came and put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. And he called his disciples to him and said to them, truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all she had to live on. I want to talk to you for a few moments from this topic. Let's make it happen. Let's make it happen. That'll make sense now. It'll make sense in a minute. Let's make it happen. I read this text and I'm excited because I see that Jesus tends to be a people watcher. Jesus is sitting in this particular place on this particular day, and he is sitting by and he is people watching. He is watching people come to and fro from the temple, and he's watching them. And I on occasion, not just occasion, probably more often than not, I like to people watch. So if you don't get anything from this message, you can at least take this away and understand that I am Christ-like, because I like to people watch. Jesus liked to people watch as well. He would sit and watch people, and I do that too. I don't like to study in my office. I don't like to just sit in quiet by myself. I'm the type of person that fuels themselves around people, and so I like to go to different places. I want to write a book one day called Confessions from the Coffee House. Confession from the Coffee House. Like, I'll go to Starbucks or other coffee houses and I will see people and I will study, but I'll be honest, oftentimes I'm distracted by the things that are going on around me. Yeah. There are some weird things that happen in places when you don't think anyone is looking. Yeah. People say and do weird things when people aren't looking. I'm not going to go into any detail about some of the stuff that I've seen, but just know that when people don't think you're watching, they will do some strange things. Now, to that point, I need you to also remind yourself that people are looking at you when you don't think. Go ahead. What type of things are you doing when you don't think people are watching? See, I'm an honest believer, I'm a true believer that people become their authentic self when they don't think anybody's looking. I'm a believer that people begin to act as naturally as possible when they don't think people are looking. When they think that the eyes are off of them and nobody's watching, people tend to become their authentic self. Why? Because when we see people looking at us, we tend to guard our actions. We tend to guard our speech. We tend to guard what we do. There are certain things that when nobody's looking, if you're just honest today, there are some practices that you have in private that you would never want to reveal in public. Because when nobody's looking, you tend to do things in a way that are natural to how you think, to how you respond, to what you're doing. And in this particular text, we have a woman who didn't think anyone was looking. And she behaves in a natural way. She behaves in a way that catches the attention of the Savior. She behaves in a way that makes the Savior point her out to his people. Let me pause there and go to another side of this. I am on this journey to 120. And on my journey to 120, I want to do everything at 120. I want to do everything above and beyond what I feel my capacity, my capability is, not to burn myself out, but to go beyond what my limitations are. And so I started going to Toastmasters. If you know what Toastmasters is a group of people who get together to improve their speech, to improve their public speaking. They utilize tools and opportunities for people to gain expertise in the area of public speaking. So I want to get better in the area of public speaking. It's no surprise to those of you who regularly attend this place that I do this on a regular basis. And so I want to be better at it if I'm going to continue to do it. So I go in there, and I'm not going to lie to you. I go in, and there's this thing called table talks. There's table talks. There are random questions that they give to you when you stand up, and they spontaneously ask you a question. You have to answer the question and speak 1 to 2 minutes on that particular topic with no prior preparation, with no prior thought, with no prior warning. You have to stand up and give a 1 to 2 minute talk on this particular topic. And I have arrogantly named myself to my wife privately, but not to the people who are in the Toastmasters class, because some things you do in private that you don't do in public. And I have named myself privately the Table Talk Champion. I've named myself the Table Talk Champion, even so much so that my wife, she's been coming to the Toastmasters with me. She downloaded a list of questions that the Table Talks will sometimes be on. And what I tell them to do is, I say, throw one at me. I stand in the kitchen and I say, what is it? And they'll ask the question, and I begin to talk, and I begin to eloquently wax into the kitchen, and I tell them what it is that I would do in a certain situation and how I will respond in a certain situation. And then I say, thank you. And I back up and I ask them, evaluate that. And they say, oh, that was good. That was 1 minute and 18 seconds, and you covered everything. And I said, because I'm the Table Talk Champion. Every now and again, one of the questions comes up, and the question will throw me for a loop. The question will redirect my thoughts. It will put me in a place where because I love to talk, and I do this. You give me something, I talk, and I'll talk off the top of my head. But there's oftentimes, or every now and again, not often, seldom, there's a question that throws me off. It silences me. It makes me have to think. This question that was asked to me the other day, it messed me up, and it gave me pause. Here's what the question was. The question simply asked this. It says, if you realized you had a shorter time to live than expected, what would you do? If you realized you had a short amount of time than expected to live, what would you do? Now, the gravity and the weight of that question threw me for a loop. It made me think, what would I do with my life if I realized it was shorter than I thought? You know, all of us have dreams of a long life. All of us have thoughts of living long. All of us want to have longevity. Dr. King talked about it and then was killed the next week. We all want to live a long life. And here's the problem. The problem is, if we had a shorter time to live than we did, how would we change what we do? So now what we do is predicated on two things. One, who's looking, and how much time do I have? Who's looking, and how much time do I have? I believe that in this particular text that we have today, we have a woman who does not have the thought of a long life in mind, nor does she have the judgment of other people watching her in mind. She just acts the way is natural to her. And she acts in a way that if you pay attention to what it is that she does and what she overcomes, you would look at your life asking the two questions. If somebody was watching and making an example out of my life and I did not have long to live, what would I do? She'd show you how to make it happen. She'd show you how to make it happen. She'd show you what it is that you ought to do. She'd show you some of the things that are limiting you from living the life that God has called you to. If you pay attention to how she's living her life, if you pay attention to how she handles this circumstance just in a few verses, and not much said about her, there is much to be said about what we can do to maximize the life that God has given us. So I believe that there are three things that I want to bring up today that this woman does that I believe we ought to do if we're going to make it happen and live the life that God has called us to live in the maximum way that he's called us to live it. Here it is. If you're taking notes, write this down. The first thing she does is she overcomes injustice. She overcomes injustice. I need you to see this. Jesus is people watching at the temple, and he comes to the place of the court of the women. He comes to the place of the court of the women. What you need to understand is at the court, there was a court of the Gentiles. And at the temple, the Jews could go the first. Jewish males could go all the way in. And the priests, Jewish male priests could go all the way into the Holy of Holies. But there were sections where they had sectioned off. And fewer people could make their way in to the temple. So there was the court of the Gentiles, where Gentiles who were proselytes or people who had converted to Judaism could come and make sacrifices. And then further from that, the Jews, all of the Jews, men and women, could go into this next part. So the sacrifices are made in the court of the Gentiles. But then there's the court of the women. This is the place where the women could go. And in this particular court, watch this, you had 13 boxes which made up what is called the treasury. It's inside the court of the women. And on top of those boxes were trumpet-looking horns that you could put your money into, and it would funnel it down into the bottom of the box. And so in the court of the women, this is where Jesus goes to people watch. I believe that our experiences create our passions for us. I believe that our experiences in life create our passions. I believe people watching was a passion of Jesus, but not just people watching anywhere, people watching at the temple. Watch this. Jesus goes to the temple and he sits in the court of women. In the court of women is the treasury where people would give their offerings. But opposite the treasury was a place where they would also give offerings for purification. If you were wealthy or you had a lot of money, you would give an offering of a lamb for purification. If you did not have a lot of money, you would give an offering of 2 turtle doves for purification. Jesus was brought to this very place when he was a baby because Mary had to make an offering of purification. And Mary came and she gave an offering of 2 turtle doves, signifying the fact that she did not have much material wealth. She didn't have a lot of money. And so Jesus, as a grown man, finds himself frequenting the place where his mother came to make an offering to the Lord. I believe that as God, he frequents the temple because it feels like home. But as a man, he frequents the temple because it reminds him of the struggle of his past. As God, he frequents the temple and watches to see the people who don't think God is watching. How are they performing? As man, he shows up to the temple to say, one day, I'm going to make good on the promise to help these struggling people. Jesus sat at the treasury, opposite the treasury, watching it, and probably seeing this woman. It probably brought back a memory of his mother who did not have much, but came and brought what she had before the master. And so as a man, he comes in and he sees this woman and he sees what she lacks. He sees what she doesn't have. And I believe that there is compassion in his eyes. But let me flip from Jesus to the woman. The woman shows up and she gives us an example of how we ought to move when we're living when we don't think anybody's looking. She overcomes the injustice. The fact that this widow only has 2 mites, the fact that this widow only has 2 small copper coins, which only equal to a penny, is an indictment on the very temple she's contributing to. The temple was the place where poor people were supposed to be cared for. The temple was the place where the widows were supposed to be taken care of, fed, given money, given bread. The temple was the place where this widow should have come and feel the safest. Problem is, things have changed. And what this widow found when she got to the temple was not justice for her situation, not justice for the word of God. What she found was injustice. What do you do when the church are the people propagating injustice? Well, what do you do when it's the church using the Bible, using religion, using the buildings, using the places in which people were supposed to come and get refuge? What do you do when the church are the people who are not taking care of the people God called them to take care of? Deuteronomy 24, verse 17 through 21 tell us that God has called us, called the church, called Israel. He called them. This is what his command was to them in Deuteronomy, to take care of the poor. You shall not pervert the justice due to the sojourner or the fatherless, or take a widow's garment in pledge. No, he said, don't pervert the justice due to them. that there's justice that is due to them, but we have to give it to them. He says the sojourner, which is the foreigner, the person who comes into the land, or the fatherless, the person who doesn't have a father, who has lost an edge in life because he doesn't have a father, or the widow who has lost her husband, her protection and provision. He says, but you shall remember that you were a slave in Egypt, and the Lord your God redeemed you from there. Everybody can relate to this. I don't care if you're black, white, or whatever, you were a slave to your sin, and God redeemed you. And what he says in turn is that you're to take care of other people when I send them to you. He says, therefore I command you to do this. When you reap your harvest in your field and forget a sheaf in the field, don't go back and get it. Next verse. That's what he says. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. This is how you're going to take care of them. Your abundance is to bless other people. Don't miss this. He says, I'm going to bless you with abundance so that you can bless people who don't have. I'm going to bless you with more so that you can bless people who don't have anything. And then what he says is, there's these extra sheaves are for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, and that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When we get blessed with an abundance and bless other people who don't have, God then turns around and blesses us with more. The reason why we're stuck and can't receive a blessing is because we don't know how to get a blessing through us, so God won't get it to us. He says that the Lord your God may bless you in all the work of your hands. When you beat out your olive trees, you shall not go over them again. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow. You understand that an olive is pressed, but when it's pressed twice, you get more out of it. He says the first time, take what you got. The second time, give it away. He says, when you gather the grapes of your vineyard, you shall not strip it afterwards. It shall be for the sojourner, the fatherless, and the widow, consistently and constantly. In the Old Testament law, the Bible speaks of justice. It speaks of taking care of the poor. It speaks of taking care of widows and strangers, fatherless people. And in the temple, in the New Testament, when Jesus shows up, here's what we have. We have a temple that is strayed away from the Word of God. The command of the Old Testament was to take care of, not exploit the foreigner, not exploit the fatherless, not exploit the widows. And here we have a widow who has $0. But here's what I love about the widow. She didn't let injustice keep her from doing what God called her to do. She didn't let injustice keep her from being everything that God called her to. See, we live in a place where the church has propagated injustice. The church has not done what she has been called to do. But here's what this widow does. She says, you will not see me go away. You will not see me not show up. You will not see me be in the place that God has called me to. Can I talk to about 3 or 4 people who really see the injustices of the world today and can see how the church has ignored these injustices? Don't you dare give up. Your job is to show up, stand up, and speak up in the face of injustice. This woman could have easily looked at the injustice and said to herself, I don't know if I'm going back to church. I don't think it changes anything. I don't think it makes a difference. I mean, what's really happening? This woman says, no, I refuse to let the sins of other people keep me from the destiny that God has for me. I refuse to let the sins of other people keep me from doing what is necessary to get what God is calling me to. This woman overcame the injustice. I was talking to one of our Freedom Kids workers earlier today, and she was talking about something that happened this week with one of her former students. She's an educator at OD Wyatt, and I said, see, this is the type of things that keep me from wanting to take my family and my daughters and say, you know, we'll just raise our kids in a bubble. We don't want to deal with everybody else. We don't want to help anybody else. We just going to do what we called to do and move away and do what we got to do and raise them on a farm somewhere where we don't have to deal with the rest of the world. And God says, that's not what I called you to. I called you to overcome the injustice. I called you to speak up to the injustice. I called you to show up. Watch this. This widow showing up is a statement against their sin. Every time she shows up, every time she rises up, every time she does what she's called to do, they have to recognize that they have violated the command of God. I'm here to talk to anybody who's been dealing with an injustice. Don't you sit down. Don't you lay down. Don't you give up. Every time you stand up, some oppressor has to see that you will not quit. Some oppressor has to recognize that God is still working in you. Some oppressor needs to recognize that they're going to have to deal with God and at the same time deal with you. I know it's a little tight, and some people don't have that in them. I'm a fighter. And what the Lord told me to tell you is, this woman right here, she was a fighter. They wouldn't take care of her, but she said, that don't mean anything. I'm going to stand up, show up, and speak up. And here's what God is saying to us today. You cannot be silent about injustice. Every time she showed up, she was indicting them for what they didn't do right. She was saying, you're supposed to take care of the widows. And I refuse to go away. I refuse to just be some afterthought that you have ignored when you don't see me anymore. No, you will see me. You will see me. You will hear me. You will hear my voice. I'm going to bring up some stuff that's probably controversial, but I got to do it because I don't often do it, but I have to do it. I still will speak up for the things that have passed that we have kind of moved on from. Here's what I don't like about the injustices that happen in our country. We rile ourselves up for about 15 minutes. Then after 15 minutes, these things go away and we move on to the next thing. So I will continue to call out the name of Philando Castile. Why will I call his name out? This man was sitting in his own car with a license to carry the handgun that he had, and he dies for the right that other people are fighting for. You get quiet on me if you want, but you need to amen this. That man died because of a right that somebody else is fighting for. Other people are having the right to carry these guns. He gets killed for it, and yet here's our stance on justice. It's old news now. We haven't heard his name since people protested in the streets for one day. But here's what the widow did. She says, I won't protest one day. I'll keep showing up. I'll keep doing what's right. I'll keep doing what God called me to do. I'll keep speaking truth to power. I'll keep doing what it is that I'm supposed to do to keep it in the face of the people who can make change. And the reality is that's what the church is called to do. Go read Micah chapter 6, verse 8. The Bible says God is not looking for your sacrifices and all of these other things. Thank God for your offering. God wants that offering. He wants you to show yourself that you love him. But here's what he's saying. I need you to give justice and act rightly. Here's what I need you to understand. This woman shows up as an indictment against them. I will continue to bring up the name of both of them, John. Go ahead. It's unfair for me to have to think in my own house that somebody can come in while I'm eating a bowl of cereal and kill me. This is not about police. This is about justice. Come on. This is about justice. I will call the name of these people, and I will not be shamed by any Christian or any non-Christian into not speaking justice in these situations. Come on. It is not fair. It is not right. I will speak up for justice for the people who are not receiving equal pay. I will speak up for justice for the people who are not receiving their rights because of their gender. I will speak up for justice because that's what Jesus would do. Come on. This woman overcomes justice. And as a believer, I've got to do more than just pray. Ooh, y'all quiet there. Here's what I need you to understand. I need you to understand prayer is important. But prayer comes with a plan and a practice. God doesn't just hear your prayer, he answers them. And when he answers, oftentimes he puts the answer in your head, in your mouth, in your hands. What is it that you're going to do? Let me give you this. Write this down and remember it. This is what the practice that I will give. While we release justice to the hand of God, we recall justice to the minds of men. Say it one more time. While we release justice to the hand of God, we recall justice to the minds of men. And this woman trusted God. Trust me, I'll show you in a little bit. But here's what she did. Every time she showed up, she recalled justice to the minds of the people who were there. She made sure that they understood that this would not go unspoken of. Here's the problem with most of us. We can't get past where we are because we won't stand up to injustice. And so the proverbial glass ceiling that exists, it only exists because you won't break through it. It only exists because you won't speak to it. It only exists because we won't step up and do what God has called us to do. We can't complain about where we are if we won't stand up for what we want. Here's the next thing she did. She overcame insecurity. Now, this is real. I'm heavily preaching on justice right there, but I need you to also understand sometimes it's not injustice that keeps us from what God wants for us. It's insecurity. Wow. It's real quiet because we want to blame other people for us not making it to where we are. Sometimes it's injustice. Other times it's insecurity. How do I see this? This woman could have easily looked at her situation and her circumstance, justice aside, and said to herself, I don't have what they have. I'm not going there anymore. I don't see myself the way that they see themselves. I don't have the resources or the luxuries or the things that they have. So what's against me is greater than what's against them. And I'm just going to be stuck in my position. The woman brings her two mites to the temple with confidence. Jesus sits and watches her, and he never says that she creeps up. I think in our minds, we put things on this woman that we don't have. I think in my mind, I was watching this woman kind of creep up to the thing and take her little two mites and say, there it is, Jesus. I hope you're satisfied with what I got. No, with confidence, I believe. She got over her insecurities. Looking at what everybody else had, it says, that's what you got. But I'm going to give what God has given me. I'm going to give what he's blessed me with. I'm not going to look at what other people have and look at myself as less than. No, I will give what he's blessed me with. Now, before you think I'm about to turn this into a money sermon, although this text is about her giving what she had, and some of us need to give what we had, I'm talking right now about insecurity to start whatever it is that God told you to start. These people did not intimidate her. There are several of us who are living with insecurity in certain areas of our life. Yep, some of you are living with giving insecurity. You're so insecure that you can't tithe because you're scared and insecure about what's going to happen to the rest of your money. Go ahead, you're insecure about the fact that I don't want to give because I don't know what they're going to do with my money. You're insecure because you're thinking somebody's going to know how much I make or what I have if I give it to these people. Stop being insecure. But there are other areas of our lives where we find ourselves insecure. I don't have the education to get that done. I don't have the background to get that done. My family is not that. I don't have their story. I don't have that experience. I don't have that opportunity. Here's the problem. We are living in our insecurities, comparing ourselves to what God is doing or what other people are doing, and missing out on our destiny. It is your insecurity that is keeping you from your destiny. I need you to understand something. This woman overcame her insecurity and she shows up with what she has. You have to be confident in what you have and stop comparing yourself to someone else's situation. Come up here for a second, French. I need y'all to see something. I want y'all to get the visual of this. Imagine French and I, we go to the tailor together. And when we get to the tailor, French sees the tailor, he measures me first. And then French sees the tailor go over to the roll. If you've ever gotten any custom clothes made, there's a fabric roll. And he goes over to the fabric roll and he begins to pull fabric. And French and I are going to get the same suit made. And so he goes over to the fabric roll and he begins to pull out all of the fabric that he's going to make for my suit. He cuts it off of the roll and he lays it out on the table. And then he begins to measure French. And when he gets done measuring French, he goes to the same roll and he pulls out the material. And on the table next to it, he lays it out. And then French looks at the tables. And he begins to look at both tables. And he looks at the material that it's going to take to make my suit. And then he looks at the material that's going to take to make his. It would be foolish for French to begin to complain about the amount of material that the tailor has laid out for his custom suit. It would be foolish for French to begin to make a judgment on how what the tailor thinks about him because of the fact that he has laid out less material. If you begin to judge your self-worth based on the material that's laid out on the table in comparison to the material that's laid out for my table, you'll miss the blessing that the tailor has for you if you walk out before he finishes your suit. What you got to understand is it takes more material to take care of this than it does that. And so what you got to understand is what he's customizing for you doesn't require the same amount of material of what he's customizing for me. Hold on just a second. I'm coming back to you. I need about 3 people to understand that you're looking at your resources. You're looking at your education. You're looking at your family situation. And God is saying, I'm going to work with what you got. I'm going to work with what you have. I'm going to work with what you've been presented. It may look like less, but I'm still going to have you fly. It may look like less, but when I'm done with you, folks are going to be asking you who dressed you, who made you up, who made you over. I need 3 people to stand up and holler, I feel that. Watch this. It's going to take more material to cover me than it is him. But I need you to understand that just because I got more material doesn't necessarily make me healthier. There are some parts about me that are unhealthy that require requires me to have to cover it up. Say it again. This is a self-deprecating part of the sermon. There are some parts about me that are unhealthy and they require more material to cover it up. You've been looking at somebody else's life and you've been judging what it is that they have. You've been judging how it is that they live. You've been judging where it is that they work. You've been judging what it is that they drive. You've been judging what they wear. Don't you understand that sometimes unhealthy people require more material to cover up what's going on underneath? There are some folk that you're jealous of that are just covering up insecurity. There are some folk that you're jealous of that are just covering up their shame. There are some folk that you're jealous of that they're covering up their guilt. And you're worried about the less material that God has given to you. I need you to understand some of that is just a cover up. to tell you today, don't you ever complain about your less. You ought to thank God that he's customizing your life. When we compare ourselves to others, we don't consider the costs and the consequences associated with being someone else. You do understand that when I walk into a place to get a custom suit made because I require more material because of the unhealth that I've acquired over the years, it's also going to cost me more to get a suit than French. And here you are looking to get more, but you don't want to pay for it. Here you are looking to get more, and I'm telling you, it ain't worth what it's going to cost you. Some of you need to stay where you are with what you have and move forward with the material that God has given you. Don't let what God is doing for others detour you or deter you from your own destiny. You need to remind yourself that God has a plan for me, and that plan for me is tailored to my life. She overcame her insecurity. Lastly, she overcame her independence. She overcame independence. She overcame independence. I love the text, because the text says Jesus is people watching at the temple, the place where the widow should have been taken care of. She overcame injustice. And he watches her confidently stride up to the money box, put in 2 small copper coins, which make a penny. She overcame her insecurity. She didn't have to recognize or look at what other people were doing. She recognized that God was doing something special in her. And the last thing is, Jesus says, he calls his disciples to him. He said, dude, come here. Truly I say to you, this poor widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to the offering box. For they all contributed out of their abundance. They had it to give. They didn't lose anything in giving what they gave. It says, but she out of her poverty has put in everything she had, all she had to live on. Y'all missed it. She didn't give in proportion to what she had. We teach that and we say, give in proportion to what you have. And I believe in that. I believe in equal sacrifice. It's not equal giving, it's equal sacrifice. I agree. But this woman gives us an example of getting rid of her independence. She overcomes her independence. How does that happen? Jesus says, did you see what she did? And disciples probably like y'all, they're listening to Jesus, but they don't fully get it. He said, did you see what she did? And they was like, yeah, she put them 2 coins in there. What you talking about, Jesus? And she said, no. Everybody else gave an offering in proportion to what they had, but she gave all that she had. They said, yeah, that was all she had in her purse. He said, no, you missed it. All she had to live on. He said, she didn't just give what she had on her. She didn't just give what she had available. She didn't just give what she had in the moment. She gave all she had. I need you to get it. Now again, maybe some of us are called to do this. My grandmother just visited some missionaries in New York who are getting ready to sell their home, leave everything and go and be missionaries in Africa. They're giving up everything. Some of us are called to do it materially. But here's what I'm trying to get you to understand. The Bible shows us that she comes to the place where God is, and she gives him her whole life. And there's some people in this room today that here's the thing that God is asking for from you. He may not be asking for it from your checkbook, but he's asking today, will you give me your whole life? He says, I need you to give me your whole life. Like, what is it that you're holding back from God? Because some of us are living our Christian life with mattress money. Y'all don't understand what mattress money is. Okay, let me help you understand the concept of mattress money. There was a time when there were older women, they would tell the younger women, they give them some advice, and they would say to them, girl, when you get married, and that man is there, I know what you need to do is you need to have your little stash of money underneath your mattress just in case he don't take care of you. Just in case he get to tripping. Just in case you got to take them kids and run. Just in case it don't work out the way you thought it would. Just in case you fall out of love. Just in case he's not the one you wanted to be. Just in case I need you to keep a little mattress money. And this is the way that some of us have been living our Christian lives. We got a little mattress money underneath our soul. And here's the reality. Just in case the Lord don't show up. Just in case he don't do what he promised. Just in case his word don't come through. Just in case I don't feel like it. Just in case case I find something better, just in case I feel like there's a better option on the other side. Too many of us are living the Christian life with a plan B. And this woman said, I don't have a plan B. I'm giving everything I have. If the Lord is going to take care of me, I'm going all in. I'm giving him what I got, and he's going to have to make up the difference. I'm giving him what I got, and I refuse to turn around. I'm giving him all I got, and I will never exchange it for what it is that I thought I could have. No, I got plan A, and that's it. I need you to get this. You live in your Christian life with mattress money, that means you don't trust him. And when you're in a relationship where there's no trust, here's what happens. There is no vulnerability. There is no exchange. There is no fullness of resource. Okay, y'all don't understand mattress money. Let me see if I can explain it this way. My daughter Mackenzie, she is obsessed with American Girl dolls. Like, no, obsessed. Like, she loves it. Every chance she gets. At the moment where we got a couple of hours of free time, she'll ask me, can we go to the American Girl doll store? And what she wants to do is she wants me to drive her all the way to North Dallas. And she wants to look at dolls. And here's what she'll do. Whenever she's going to a sleepover at somebody else's house, she packs up her babies. She puts them in these bags, and she's got her dolls with her. And she's going to take her American Girl dolls with her. She's not discriminatory. She likes black dolls and white dolls, Hispanic dolls, blonde dolls and dark-haired dolls, brown-haired dolls, curly-haired dolls and straight-haired dolls, short-haired dolls, long-haired dolls. She loves American Girl dolls. What she understands is, by herself, she can't afford them. So what happens is, first time this happened, I was a little offended. She walks up to me, she says, Daddy, you know, American Girl dolls are $115 a piece. She says, I only have $35. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you my $35. I'm gonna give you my $35. I'm gonna give you my $35. And that way, because you have more money than me, when I give you my money, then what you can do is you just buy the doll and give it to me. She say, I wanna give you all I have. Because when I give you all I have, you combine it with what you have, and I can get more. First time I heard it, I was a little disturbed, because that's my $80. The difference is 80, that's my 80, and I don't want to buy an American Girl doll with it. But then I started to recognize what the concept was, and what she was basically saying was, I don't need to have this $35 if I've got a father who's got an abundance and who can give me what it is that I need. She says if I relinquish what it is that I have, I actually get more when he returns it. I need about 15 people in the room to understand that when you hold on to it, you find yourself coming up short. When you hold on to it, I'm not just talking about your money. I'm talking about your life. I'm talking about your peace. I'm talking about your joy. I'm talking about your job. I'm talking about your marriage. I'm talking about your kids. I'm talking about your health. While it's in your hands, you'll always come up short. But if you give it over to the master, you do understand that when it comes back in abundance. You do know that he has more than you have. You do know that he can do more with it than you can. You do understand that when you give it to him, it comes back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. You do understand that he's got more than you can ever have, that he owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. You do understand who your daddy is, don't you? Need you to get this. This woman releases her independence. When you give God all you have, you set yourself up to receive all that he has. Our biggest problem is we're convinced that we can do it ourselves. We have to acknowledge and release our desire to do it alone. You got to rely on him. I love this. I'm closing. I'm done. This woman, she gives us the principles that we can live to lead an extraordinary life. We overcome injustice. We speak up for it. We don't let it paralyze us. We overcome insecurity. We don't sit back and compare our lives to other people's lives. No, we step into what it is that God has called us to, because what he's customizing for us is enough for us. And then we overcome our independence. I can't do this by myself. I need you, God. Here's what I love about the text and how it closes. Jesus is watching this woman. He sees all these things. And he says to his disciples, come here, y'all. Come here. Come here. Look at this. And he shares with his disciples what he's seeing in this woman. The disciples paying attention to it are learning. And I believe that Jesus all the time teaches a lesson. He teaches a lesson when he's bringing his disciples over. He's always trying to show them a deeper meaning. Here's what happens. He shows them, he says, this widow has put in more than all those who are contributing to offering box. For they all contributed out of their abundance, but she out of her poverty has put in everything that she had. And Jesus catches her doing something, and he wants other people to see it. Yeah. You ever catch your kid doing something so cute that you want everybody else to see it? No, don't act like y'all don't do it. Y'all act like y'all don't do it. You catch your kid doing something, and you know if you call their name, they're gonna stop. You know that if you draw attention to them, they're gonna change course. You know that when they know someone's watching, they don't perform the same way. But when they don't know somebody's watching, they freely perform like it's natural to them. So what you do now in the age of cell phones, we pull out the cell phone and we try to get a little bit so we can put it on the ground. We try to get a little bit so we can post it so that everybody can see it, because we want everybody to see how proud we are of how they behaved. I need you to see something, because oftentimes in messages like this, the resolve is that he stepped in and he multiplied the mites, steps in and he gives her countless numbers of coins for the copper she's dropped. That doesn't happen in this text. What happens in this text is that God shows us what happens when we perform like this woman. Watch this. He sees you. That's it. He sees you and he's showing you off. Some of us are wondering why we're going through what we're going through. The reality is he sees you and he's showing you off. He doesn't call your name. You've been praying to see if God is going to answer, and you're wondering what's going on with this particular point and this particular issue in your life. And you're saying, why am I not hearing God? Because he's not talking to you. He's calling somebody else. Hey, come here. You're going to see this in the future. I want to show you how to handle it. He sees you, and he's showing you off, whether you like it or not, whether you know it or not. You're influencing somebody else. God says, come here. I want you to watch her, how she handles this. I want you to watch him, how he handles this. And some of us need to get to the place where we're not looking to do things for our own gain, but for the glory of God. Amen. I don't do it for gain. I do it for glory, not my own. This woman went viral, but it wasn't on her own account. Nice. This woman went viral, but it wasn't on her own account. What do I mean? If you don't know what viral means, let me help you. Viral is when something takes the internet and it just is like an infection. It just goes crazy all over the internet. But you ever notice that some people, that these issues that go viral, when you catch somebody else and then you post it, watch this, everybody has to go to your account to see what they did. But you're promoting what it is that they did, but they got to go through you to see it. Here's what God is doing with some of your lives, and you got to be content with it. You got to be excited about it. You've gone viral, but you're not going to get credit for it. You've gone viral, but the reality is they're not going to your account. You're not getting more followers. You're not getting more stuff. You know what's happening? They got to go through him to see you. And here's what God is trying to do. He's trying to use you to show off his glory. I don't do it for glory. I don't do it for gain. I do it for glory. It's his glory. This woman is an example. And the disciples, watch this, it's so good. The disciples learned the lesson. And in Acts chapter number 6, when the disciples have a problem with widows, they go back to the lesson. They say, no. We know how the widows handle this. They're going to keep standing up for injustice. The widows were feeling like they weren't getting their daily distribution of food. You know what the widows did? They took the example from this woman. They said, hey, we ain't getting our food. They stood up. They overcame injustice, overcame their insecurity. Well, who am I to speak up? Who am I to say something? Watch. They overcame their independence. They say, hey, we need you. This is the body of Christ. We're supposed to be together. And the disciple says, we will not do it the way the old traditional way did it. We won't just put our money in the bucket and ignore them. The disciples took a lesson from Jesus when he called them over and said, hey, look at this. He says, I want you to handle it differently than how they handled it. And there are two types of people in the room today. There are widows and disciples. If you're a widow, remind yourself that how you're handling this, you're going viral for the account of Jesus Christ. Handle it the way God has called you to handle it. Overcome the injustice, overcome the insecurity, overcome the independence, and watch God show you off to other people. If you're a disciple, here's what he's called you to. With every bit of your abundance, it's your turn to change the game.
Come on.
It's your turn to change the game. You ought to refuse to allow this world to be the same when you leave it than it was when you got here. Let's make it